science says you will live longer, healthier, happier lives if you just, yeah. So anyway, Blake, I had a question. I don't remember what it was, but I did want to just throw you in here because you are the should I get married younger person, because we can no longer get married young and we're already married. But I don't know what your thoughts are on just what we've been talking about as a young man. And how old are you now?
A month from being 20.
He's almost 20 years old. We got a big birthday coming. Not really. It's just a random birthday. A year from now, we'll talk again. Anyway, so what are your thoughts? I mean,
Younger
I'm
than
curious.
I was thinking.
Well, I'll follow your question with a question.
You can do it.
So, as a person who, I mean, I can't really relate to anything that's been said. I'll just go ahead and say, because, I mean, I've been alone my entire life. I don't know what loving somebody feels like. I don't know. I've never had any of the romance, teenage stuff. I've never had any of that when I grew up. Nothing. So I kind of just see my life kind of flashing before my own eyes in a way.
I like the way you put that.
Where, like, I mean, I'll be graduating college at 21, and then I'll be going off to graduate school at 22, and then I'll be spending 4 to 7 years in graduate school. So potentially, say I come out of graduate school, say I continue to have no experience, don't meet anybody. Now I'm 28, have no experience, don't know what love feels like, never met somebody, never dated somebody. And I think that's my biggest fear, is because at that age, I think you kind of like are expected to like have enough experience, especially if you're single. So like as somebody who's like 28, you know, finish your education, you're going off, you're getting an adult job, you're living your life,
Right.
and you're kind of expected to have all these things and just know these things. And I think it's scary for me, because I don't want for my future partner or future people I interact with, future females I interact with, they're probably going to have more experience with that, and they're most likely going to know like what they want in somebody, or because they've been around the block a couple times, most likely. And for me, I haven't.
Especially
So-
if you get to 28. If that's
Especially
what
if
you're
you
saying,
get to 28
Yeah.
and you've just now gotten done with school, and you're now starting your career, and you're like, oh wait, I have time now. Let's meet somebody. And you have no experience.
There are some people that can just do that. Like she said, I'm like, no, I couldn't. There was girls running around the whole time.
Yeah,
It was hard
but
for me.
like for me, like I don't know what that feels like.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm just like, what should I do? Like,
Yeah.
Well, to be clear, you're not saying that you don't know what it is to see a pretty girl and be attracted to her and go,
Oh,
okay,
no,
I need to handle this. You're saying engaging and entering into a relationship.
like
is
I
not
have
something
no
to chase after.
idea what
Yeah.
to do. Like I've never had an experience with somebody. I've tried,
Yeah.
which I don't know what the definition of trying is, because I've been very unsuccessful
It's okay,
countless
man.
times. So
You don't have
Um,
to elaborate. I don't think. Yeah,
but-
I can't believe I'm married. Even to this day, I'm like going, somebody said yes.
I was going to say it's a genuine concern, because there's so many out there these days that are not protecting themselves and, you know, caring about that. But I also think that, Blake, when you walk with Jesus, he gives you those pieces as you go. As long as you are involved in the right circles and with the right people, especially in a church environment, and, you know, having to do with families who grow up like you would. I'm thinking, my thoughts are, pray for the kind of girl you've got in mind. God's going to bring her at the right time.
Yeah, you already know what you want, I'm presuming. And when it comes
to a T, exactly.
see, and that might be slowing
Draw a
down a
picture
little bit.
and
Well, it's not like I'm going out and saying it. Like
No,
it's
no, I
just
know what
kind of
you're saying.
conscious in my mind, like what I'm looking for.
Right, and I don't know if when we've done our podcast, we talked about this. I don't know if we talked about it in our marriage one or not, but she had a checklist of what she was looking for.
I have 3 things.
Okay,
that's good.
and tell me what they are if you don't mind.
So, for one thing, you need to. I guess this is kind of controversial to say, but you need to have somewhat of a relationship with God, or be open to the idea of
Mhm.
it.
She can be led. She's someone who's willing
Yes.
to
Willing
come
to
along
follow, or willing to understand, or
Yeah.
willing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
2, everything that I own, you own. Everything that you own, I own, kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Good. Yeah.
everything together, like we are one person. And then 3 is I need to know, like, are you the type of person who's like, I want to have children, or do you not want to have children at all? because there's a lot of people out who are just like, I don't want to have kids. I don't want to do anything. I just want to go around and travel. I just want to do things with
Right.
somebody and just
Right.
live life with a partner and then just do whatever I want.
So
Right.
confident,
Yes.
upfront information.
So like
at
I need to
least,
know
yeah.
like, are you're like, oh, I want to have 10 kids. Nope. Do you want to have no kids? No, I just want to go live my life, travel around, do things. No. Okay. Do you want to have like, I want to have 2 kids. Okay, I can do that. Like I can do that. 2 kids, 4 max maybe. But like
That's a conversation for another time.
But yeah,
That
We're
is
gonna
a-
talk
the large
about
family
large
thing
that's
another
family.
that's another.
Maybe
Yeah.
we'll pick that up next time.
That's a
That
but
sounds
like
good.
yeah. I just those are those 3 things that I need to like I need to know.
Well, first
Yeah.
off, that is an amazingly low bar.
Yeah, good
So
job.
I, because basically what you said is, do you agree with me on the things that are really central to
It's
me?
good that you
Faith
didn't
is
put
probably the
blonde
first
curly
one.
I can work
hair.
out the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
I could care less. Like
Yeah, the people
what
you have
it
to
is,
worry
but-
about are, I've watched too many Friends episodes lately, are the Monica Gellers in the world. The people who have got to have everything to a certain people that are controlled, that are checklisted, that
I
everything
don't
is
care
just, it's
how
gotta be a
high,
certain neat fix or whatever.
how tall you are. I don't care what the color of your hair is. I don't care if you have spots all over your face, acne. I don't care. I just need to have the basis.
Yeah. And I mean,
Yes.
there's, and God will take care of the attractiveness part of it. You'll be
Yeah.
attracted to the woman
Mhm.
that comes along. What do you want to say? Anything
Sorry.
for that?
Well, no, I would keep on the same theme that God's going to show you and that person that you are praying for, because I believe that's really a good place to start, is to start praying for that type of woman, that type of setting, that you'll be able to know those things, but also that God will open your heart to whatever things that you're not aware of yet, or that, things that he's setting in motion that you might have to be ready for eventually. There's things like that are going to come up, but he's going to do that as you're walking with him.
I think what I would say to that is, number one, and I think any of us can do that, especially when you're young, is you can be so concerned about your future, what may not go right, that you inhibit your ability to walk in your now. And
Absolutely.
and I think that what you need to realize is part of faith. You're saying in the beginning, this is, I want this person to share in a common faith, to be open to faith, to be led. Well, the first thing for you to do is to lead by your own example right now and follow the faith that you profess to believe today. And part of that is believing that one of 2 things is going to happen by the time you're 28. One of them is you will either have found that person or find that person, and that person will be at peace. You will be at peace about who and what and how. Those questions will be answered. Because like I said, when I say low bar, I don't mean that was a I'll take anything. You were saying that the things that matter are what matter to you. And those are the things that matter to God. What your family should look like, what your faith should look like. These are important things. They're just, you're not expanding on all these little, they have to want to live in Tahiti 2 times a year.
Yeah,
That you're not being specific. Like some people have been,
That's,
I don't like it when they through their teeth, whatever.
Yeah.
There's little stuff like that. Quirks. I mean, we got
Right.
quirks. We all do.
And I think I had talked to my mom earlier, and I think she said something that really hit me and kind of like made me a little sad. But I mean, with this whole scenario of like me potentially being 28 and then not having any experience, like I was talking to my mom, she pulled up in the driveway, and I was like, "Where'd you go?" And she was like, "Oh, I went to go get an ultrasound," because she was getting an ultrasound for like, I guess,
Other stuff.
some going on with
Yep.
women's stuff. And I was like, I was like joking with her, like, "Oh, you have another kid?" And she was like, "Oh no, hun, I was done having kids at 35." And I was like, "Dang, 35." I was like, "Dang, if I don't end up finding somebody by the time I'm 28, that's potentially. I mean, it's different for everybody, but that's potentially 7 years. That if you wanted to have a child, you gotta get going."
Here's the thing.
It
The
depends,
second
though.
thing I was going to
Depends,
say.
but-
You could date up to 5 years younger than you.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to say anything, and
Right.
they
Right.
can be as young as that.
Right.
22
But
or
if they're 5 years younger than you, make sure you're
But
at
it-
least 25 before you start dating someone 5 years younger than you.
Yeah, but it's scary because it's like, dang, what if that doesn't even happen then? And it's like, okay, well,
Right. And this is what I was
in
getting
my
at.
30s, and like
Yeah.
I don't have time.
Here's this beautiful thing. You are not a fortune teller, and you're not God. So
Exactly.
the future belongs to him. So one of 2 things is going to happen. First off, what I said to you as advice was live your life by the principles you laid out. In other words, I want to be a man of faith that's worthy of following. If you will do that and focus on that relationship with God, what does it say in Matthew 6:33? seek first God's kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. That doesn't mean a girl necessarily. What it does mean is that you will be content in everything that you have. Here's what I would say to that. So if at 28 you find the right girl, or before that, hopefully, you find the right girl. If it's coming, may it come quickly. So as we've talked about today, so you might be able to shape your lives around life together. That's a beautiful thing. It's been a pain in the butt, but also a wonderful thing. Tanya and I have both grown immensely from it. Marriage is
Right.
made to sanctify you, not to make you happy. And then the second thing is, in the event that it doesn't happen, and I can tell from your demeanor and the question itself, it's not something you desire. But by the time you arrive at that point, God will satisfy you completely. And for the Apostle Paul, he had a helpmate, likely he had a wife, but because some of the things he laments about indicate that he's there, but he wished that all men weren't. He had a contentment about his life such that he knew that he could live with or without it.
Yeah, the
You
Bible
know?
says the good thing about being single is that you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to think about how to take care of someone else and worry about the world, Paul
Yep.
said. But when you do, it'll be the right time.
Yeah,
Funny that the scripture right after the one we both have referenced in Matthew 6:34 says, "Therefore don't be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough anxieties of its own. Sufficient for the day has its own trouble." But the bottom line is you don't have to worry about it because God will definitely take care of it when that time comes. And like Greg said, I think it's cool how the other time, the single time, the thing I do remember about being single is the 2 years I had in college that were probably the highlight of my entire life. I have loved being a mom. I have loved being married. We've had some awesome trips and times, and I long for those days again, miss them tremendously. But I remember the highlight, those 2 years of walking with Jesus by myself. I was able to be obedient at a breath. I didn't have to worry about someone else's opinion of like how I was giving my money or what I was living. I was literally living on like $80 a month, and it was enough. It was just ridiculous, some of the things I was able to experience.
That'd be $800 a month in today's economy.
We talked about the Asbury revival. It was a revival time to me. There was a moment where I was able to commit something to God that I couldn't have necessarily done or wouldn't have sensed had I been married. Literally tempted to give my car away at one point or another, and thought God was telling me to. I couldn't have done that if I was married. There's so many of those. That time period was mine to give to Jesus alone.
And this is what I said earlier, Blake. She's lived in that moment. She still lives in that moment. You can hear it to some degree. She's like, sometimes we have conversations where she's like, I should stayed in that moment. But,
there were highlights of that intimacy with Jesus that I cannot go there again because I'm married now and have all those other responsibilities. So
Right.
I think that's what Paul was meaning when he said you got to think about the world and the interaction of your home
Right.
and your family. So live that up as long as possible until God says.
And I think one of the biggest things that's been the most depressing thing for me with it is like when I talk to you guys about this, like it's obvious that you've learned a lot about yourself, Greg, when you were with her. Like you learned a lot about who you are as a person and what you bring to the table or your issues when you're with her.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with me, I started going to therapy, and she asked me questions like about different things, about how I feel, and I answer and I'm like, wow, I do that. I didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm.
So like I've been missing me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been missing I don't even know who I am,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So like the only way I can learn about it is by talking to other people and being able to learn about, wait, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
Or wait, I struggle with this.
Yeah, somebody's pointing out things that they're
Yes.
seeing from the outside.
And so I'm just now learning about my own
Right.
self. And
Well,
so
and
I'm
that's
like,
you should be.
Yeah.
You're not quite 20. You should be. Until you're
Yeah.
24, scientifically, your mind's not fully formed. So you got some work to do still, just without it being anything other. Yeah, Tanya.
Well, I don't know the difference in being a girl versus a guy. May interact here, but I will tell you this is kind of a new generation thing for you to have to kind of understand about you and how you're going to interact with the world and stuff. But I don't remember ever that being a thing. I don't remember
Right.
trying to figure out who I was.
Well,
However,
it was the 60s that made the whole thing go and find yourself.
well, I lived in the 80s, so maybe I,
Yeah.
ignored
No,
that. I don't know.
I
What
think-
I was going to say was my thoughts were, and I was taught, because I love and have accepted Jesus, and that is my focus. Now I'm going to learn about him
Mhm.
because I'm not my own anymore. I've been bought with a price. His identity is mine. So I would encourage you, seek after and find out who Jesus is.
Right.
Right.
Be, concentrated. Let him be, fix your eyes on Jesus, Hebrews says,
Yeah.
the author and finisher of your faith. Because now you're going to know your faith. It's not going to always be that you have to know who you are, but you will know how you respond maybe to his action in your life and his, what I mean by those 2 years in my life was that I was able to be obedient just at a drop of a hat because I didn't have anybody else to worry about.
Well, you were only
Those
concerned
were
about
the
Jesus.
things, I'm sure, that taught me about my interaction with him or my reactions to him. But I know of so many people these days who are trying so hard to understand their personality maybe or their interactions with the world or whatever, but I'm afraid it drowns out the fact that Jesus just wants to be that for you. He wants to be your
Right.
identity. He wants to be your...
I think
Yeah.
it's what's cool, Blake, and is what she says.
You have time now, I guess, to figure that
yeah.
out. That's what I was
So
trying to
just a key off of that,
concentrate on that.
real quickly. What she's saying is your identity first is foremost to know who you are. You have to know best who knows you best,
Right.
and he does. And granted, and then where your community of faith comes in. First off, it's important thing because you referenced counselor, so I'm going to just point this out.
Yeah.
He is your creator. He's given you a counselor in the Holy Spirit. And that counselor exists to remind you of everything he has taught you, which
Right.
means that he teaches you who you are. He knows who you are, so he can teach you who you are. And he has someone there to constantly remind you who you are. So I could do an entire podcast on the importance of spending time
Absolutely.
in meditation and quiet time. But to add to that, the community shapes who you are.
Yeah.
And that's another shaping factor there. So this goes to what we've talked about a number of times, who you surround yourself with
Yes.
is going to help you see. And and as the Bible tells us, what is iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. You need people around you who will do for you what you've said that you had the others do. Say, well, have you seen this about yourself? Dudes that don't do. We've created a coward culture. We've got a culture that's afraid to create conflict for the sake of healing one another. But the Bible tells us that blows from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. We literally live in an enemy multiplies kisses culture.
Yes.
And so you need people who will, I started to say something weird, who will hit you now and again and tell you the truth.
Maybe not
Exactly.
kiss you so much,
Yeah,
but
well,
instead hit you.
Well,
yeah, there was
What-
something else I was going to say.
well
It's
what
really
he's
out of
trying to
touch.
say is
Yeah.
you don't want people to feed
To feed the
continue
negative.
feed you the negative. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
all.
you don't, the last thing in the world you need to be is trapped in your own heart. In other words,
Right.
the heart, which is going to deceive you. So if you get into a depressive spiral where you're struggling with who am I, or
Literally
the girl I asked out turned me down, so my life is over, or this was the girl I'd been thinking about forever.
Right.
And then suddenly you're in this death spiral.
Well, I think
You know.
I think the more worrisome thing is that that's happened so long that now it's just I feel nothing after.
Well, see, that's the problem. You think you're stuck this way, and things aren't. But the reality is, God redeems, He raises
Yeah.
up, He restores.
Yeah, I do not want to get to the point where I just feel like I don't need it.
Yeah, no,
anymore.
I get it.
Because I mean, and the whole reason I was saying find myself, and you're absolutely right. Like seek God, and you will find it. But I think the big scary thing is that I don't want to get to the point to where I'm so unsuccessful for so long, and I feel nothing due to it.
Mhm.
That whenever I do find that person, and then things get tough and hard times happen, I just say I don't need this. I don't need this
Yeah.
person. I've been fine by myself.
But what
Blake,
do you actually touched on exactly one of the things we were talking about. Is the world, and as the world hits us, Satan would seek to take those experiences and kill something in us every time.
Right.
Every little pain becomes I want to say another P just because I'm a preacher. Every little pain becomes something that was pressure on something that was alive, such that it crushes the life out of it. And the truth of the matter is every little pain can be used by God to press us forward. It's kind of like if you ever try to squish a balloon, it always comes out the other side.
Right.
That's what a God wants us to do. He wants us to be able to find our way out of the situation, to squeeze through it, because on the other side, there's life. There's room to expand again. And so, but what I was going to say is, just like we were talking about being married together for a period of time, we preserve and we shape one another and our experiences. What you have to do in the meantime is when those negative things come your way, you have to put yourself in positions, places. That's where the church, the community comes in, that helps to reinforce what is true rather than where your own head would take you. And I realize your personality, from the time that we've gotten to know each other just a little bit, you're more likely not to reach out for that help.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're going to have to be very, very, just like someone who hates to go to the gym. I hate people that love to go to the gym, except for my wife. But someone who doesn't like going to the gym but makes themselves do it. There's a richness to it. So you have to make yourself to do community because you know it's right to do, and because God told you to, because the guy who created you is telling you it's best for you.
Right. I was going to say one of the richest times to me in my life was when I was recovering from a broken relationship, and I saw that Jesus was my counselor. He was the one I wanted. I don't know that I necessarily recognize that, because I wasn't thinking I need therapy, or I wasn't thinking, specifically, but I went sat in a park and just wrote and wrote and wrote, like filled one of these composition notebooks.
She's waving a book in the air for those of you, because we aren't doing video this time.
I know. One of these composition notebooks, why I said that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Of all my emotions, just everything I was thinking and feeling, so that in that doing that, it probably wasn't doing much more than like I was, talking to a counselor or a therapist, but I was processing out of me what all the things that I think could have been internalized and caused a depressive kind of response. What I followed it up with was how God had answered some questions or some prayers of my. So God showed me in that interaction how, first of all, he was my friend, because he listened, even though it was just pages, but I knew he was with me and hearing me, and then would change my thinking as I was writing of how to see it. A couple things that he answered my prayer on that I didn't realize had to be, and it was still pain. It was still negative, emotions, but he changed them into things that he could use. So I think that's what the Bible's meaning when he says he can work all things out for the good of those who are called according to his purpose, because we want his purposes. He's going to work those things to help us see how we're going to be more like him or be made into his image. So as you're able to take those things to him, and like Greg said, interact with others so that it doesn't cause you to get too inward, where you shelter yourself from those relationships, because that's easy to do, especially if you've got kind of a traumatic lookout or whatever. And just keep going back, but keep going back to him. That's one thing that I think we learned from Job. Job just continued to go back to God, even though he was hurt by all the things that were going on around him and the pain of life itself. He kept going back to God to get an answer. And God had a few things to say to him. A few humorous things, a few slaps on the face, and a few reassurances that he was there and had his best in mind.
It's made me think of Psalm 42. 3 times in the Psalm, in 42, 6, 12, and 5, the psalmist writes, "Soul, why are you so downcast?" And it says, and then he responds with, why are you groaning inside me? Excuse me. It says, "Why so downcast? Why are you groaning inside me?" Then he responds, "Hope in God, since I will praise him again for the salvation that comes from his presence." Whenever you lie to yourself or someone lies to you, we tend to get downcast. It's the whole period we've talked about how the media comes after us, how there are people who are treacherous, which is received to deceive you and destroy you and cheat you, make you follow after desire, rather after the one who made desire. And so you turn immediately and you say, put your hope in God. Matthew 6:33, make the kingdom first. And then what happens is the rest of that psalm is literally a psalmist dealing with depression throughout that psalm and saying, when I'm here, if I go here, it brings me to where I'm supposed to be. And one day, I have a hunch, because I've met both your uncle and your dad, and they're married, and they have children. If there's hope for them, brother, there's hope for you. That's my positive note to wrap up a podcast.
That's awesome.
Is there anything else? Thanks, man, for sharing that. This has been good stuff. I almost feel like we should split it up and have, does Blake have a problem? That could be our podcast. No, now that I've made it so that
Poor
Blake's
guy.
going to go, do I have a problem?
No, but
he doesn't.
this
He's
is-
normal.
this
We've
is
dealt with
really
this with
great.
we dealt with this with our own son. I mean, sons. All of our boys have had this. And even our daughters, right, Tanya? All of us have struggled. All of us
Sure.
struggle with this. You're not dealing with anything that's uncommon.
Absolutely. Well, different angles on the same types of fears. Am I going to be in a relationship, and how am I going to be, and who am I going to, is it going to be one I can handle and one I can make long? But it's kind of neat how we started with go ahead and get married young if God allows that, and if it's your opportunity, or if it's your obedience. And if it's not, then go ahead and pursue your things that he's given you to pursue until he sets that at a right place. But no matter what, trust him along the way and be obedient to him.
Yeah.
The whole point of getting married early is just to be obedient, is the only reason I was trying to bring that up. But it's funny and interesting how the statistics weigh it out, that it's okay and it can be good in the long run, even though the world tells you it's not.
Yeah.
It can also be good to wait, as Paul says. It's valuable for you to stay single.
And just to be clear on that, if we haven't already said it, and we might have already said it, neither Tanya nor I were looking for each other when we found each other. As a matter of fact, we had both given up. She
Resigned
said
not to.
that
right?
summer
That
for
was the-
me was supposed to be,
Yeah.
I'm not dealing with girls because I came out of a bad relationship, which really, and when you want to know what a bad relationship was for me, I wanted to have a relationship. She didn't want to have one. I was her friend. I mean, I walked her down the aisle. I mean, by that, I was her escort at a beauty pageant. This girl was just like amazing, I thought, in so many ways. And no, so you get what I'm saying. So I was trying. I gave up. I quit. I said, I'm done, God. If you want me to get married, we'll get married. And then I met her, and she checked all my boxes. You know what they were? She's warm, she's beautiful, and she loves Jesus.
Well, breathing, is that what
you're
you meant by
alive?
warm?
Yeah, you were alive.
warm-blooded.
Yeah, I was pretty desperate at that point in time. You were not
Great,
the
good
result
to
of
know.
desperation. You far exceeded anything I could have ever hoped or wanted
Sure,
in my
you're
life.
going to backstep.
No, I'm
that
not
now.
backstepping. I'm stepping over it because it's true. You're so much more than everything I ever wanted to be. And then beyond that, she had a checklist too, and I met none of those expectations to
I don't
begin
think that's
with.
true. Yeah, exactly.
To begin
We
with,
talked about how
I did meet them. You just
eventually.
needed to get to. I'm one that you need to warm up to.
It was one of those that God knew the desires of my heart, but I didn't. And
So,
he
yeah.
showed me later what
So
they
here's
were.
the point. Going back to what I said earlier, God knows what I don't. God knew what Tanya didn't. God knows what Blake doesn't. God knows what my remaining single boys, Judah doesn't. God knows what Elijah doesn't. And these boys, and Elijah is a lot like you. He's 19. He's soon to be 19, right?
Yeah.
And he is
Not really.
dating is not
Yeah.
in his. I asked him. I said, "Have you ever had a girlfriend the other day?" And he said, "No." I said,
Just haven't found
"Is
the right
that
girl. He said,
yeah?" And then he just goes, "I haven't found the right girl. There's no one. I haven't been interested in anyone." And now today's culture, what would they do? They would say, "Are you gay?" No, I know the kid. He's not gay.
Exactly.
Well, then there's also the gaming community. Have you ever seen a girl? There's also that.
He
But that's
goes to
another.
work.
That's a
Yes.
current cultural
There's
problem.
some interesting
He
ones
does,
where
but he
works.
works at Starbucks. He sees all kinds of different kinds of girls in Washington State, no less. But anyway, so so far, our kids are even batting pretty good in their batting average on large family as they are as far as getting married. We're in that concerned. I'm done. I'm all out of talk.
Okay.
That's good.
Wrap
Thank
us
you.
up, Tanya. Oh, I got to push a button. Don't I have to push a button?
I did that a couple times already. I just believe that God will show you. I thought I
The
had.
truth of our relationship. So, Tanya, are we done yet? I've been done for 20 minutes. Matter of fact, I said we were done and you didn't listen to me.
No,
But
I just believe God's going to show us and show each of you, as long as you're willing and open, like Blake said, to be obedient and to follow out after the God who loves you the most and best and wants the best for you. I'll give you the
I agree.
answer.
Amen. Thanks for listening. We'll be here again soon, and we'll do this again. And I'm just rattling until this song goes like this. Nope. Now.
Keep on